All right, joining us now is the best guest we could find on any of this. His name is Gordon Sondland. You may remember he was the ambassador to the European Union for 2 years, the first Trump administration. Joins us now from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Let's start with the deportations first. This is obviously shaking up the Western Hemisphere. Got a very liberal government in Brazil. They're rattling cages. I think the capitulation in Colombia sends a big message to everybody. How do you see it?
Well, let me pivot to more of a macro issue, which is I think President Trump has changed the transition playbook forever for every president, regardless of party. And, you know, there was a lot of consternation as to why he wasn't signing on to the normal transition process. And now we can see why, because there was a lot of work going into all of these various initiatives, 30 or 40 of them, all launched at the same time, that were not shared with the current administration, which they would have been had he signed on to the normal process, which meant people would have been able to undermine him before he got out of the gate.
So let me stop you. So you believe that the Trump administration didn't share any of this with the Biden administration because the Biden administration would have leaked it to the press and created hysteria. Is that what you're saying?
Among other things, I think also what we all refer to as the deep state would have already started to put things into motion to put sand into the gears. And that's why they kept things at Mar-a-Lago. They kept things quiet. They had their landing teams ready. And that's why you saw not only shock and awe in terms of the launch of all of these initiatives, but shock and awe in terms of HR moves, in getting rid of people who would have had their hands on the levers of power. And that's why now, when the president needs to threaten, unfortunately, a foreign leader to do the right thing, which is take your own citizens back, there isn't a lot of bureaucracy pushing back on that. He sends a tweet, scares the ever-loving daylights out of the guy. Within 2 hours, as you pointed out, things go backwards. And this is how you have to conduct foreign policy when things have gotten so bad in the last 4 years.
Sure, it's an emergency. There's no doubt about it. And I don't, as I said, I don't think most Americans understand how bad the Biden administration was, how derelict in their duty they were by not upholding the federal law in place on immigration. But you also have the perception around the world that Donald Trump's a dictator and he's going to come into our country and he's going to cause trouble for us. And that's something that he has to mitigate, correct?
Well, he has to mitigate it. But when you peel back the layer of the onion, Bill, we didn't go into Colombia and start a fight. We simply said, these people, your citizens, snuck into our country. We just want to send them back. And it's the president of Colombia that started the fight. Now, just imagine for a moment that we sneak into Colombia. You're going to wind up in a Colombian jail. You're not going home on a presidential aircraft.
And I mean, as I pointed out, the phony excuse that they're in handcuffs and that's some kind of human rights violation. And these are the worst of the worst. You're going to let them run around a plane unattended? I mean, it's ridiculous.
I get a kick out of the fact that every time I go to Mexico on vacation or as a tourist, I'm going to a very, usually very high-end resort in one of Mexico's nicer places. I'm planning to spend a ton of money, and the Mexican Customs Authority give me the third degree like no one else. And I'm there to help their economy. And yet, on the other hand, people want us to be tolerant of someone simply sneaking across the border. So hypocrisy has its finest hour.
With all due respect, Mr. Ambassador, you shouldn't go to Mexico. I'm never going there again because they're an enemy to America. They hurt us and they kill people here and they won't do anything about it. So no Mexico for me. And the Caribbean's got a lot of lovely resorts and a lot of good countries down there. Let's shift over to
Food for thought.
Yeah, let's shift over to your expertise here. So I think the situation in Ukraine is worsening for Kyiv, and that's an advantage to Putin, unfortunately, because Putin doesn't care how many Russians are dead. He does care about the ruble collapsing and his economy in shambles. He cares about that, but he doesn't care about the dead. So Trump has now got a more difficult problem with Putin than he would if the battle was a stalemate, which it isn't. And Trump knows that. He actually said that to me. He said, Russia's winning. I said, I know they're winning, but you have to make it painful for them to win. But now the specter of more economic sanctions against Russia. That's what Trump came out last week and said. How do you see this going down?
I actually think Putin is going to regret doing what he did for the simple reason that if he winds up at Donald Trump's pleasure by retaining any amount of Ukraine that he was able to take since the invasion, and I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but let's assume that it is, the payment he's going to have to make for that is a structure that guarantees Ukraine ironclad security. If that's short of joining NATO, it'll be some kind of a NATO compact umbrella, but the deal will be very simply, okay, you get X, Y, and Z, you never get another inch, and if you take one more inch in the future, all bets are off, and we go toe-to-toe immediately with the United States and NATO all in with Ukraine. So you're locked. It's all over.
When is that deal? Are they going to go to Iceland and meet? Do you have any scenario that might happen in the next month or so?
I think it's going to happen very quickly because I think President Trump believes it's his personal duty to stop the bloodshed. He sort of promised it.
Absolutely. That's one of his big signature items, to try to get something there. And then he might get the Nobel Peace Prize if he does at least nominate it. All right. So that's all conjecture. We can just guess at that. Greenland. So this is another thing. I wrote a message of the day on BillOReilly.com where I was making fun of the Gulf of Mexico being the Gulf of America now. And Greenland, they're going to change the name to Maracoldo because it's, but there is the lithium, and that's what this is all about. Because China has the lithium market worldwide to make the machines, and the United States want the world dependent on China. And so we need the lithium there. But instead of negotiating a deal, which you could do, I think you could probably do it in a week with the Danes. He goes, we might take it over. Is that the right way to do it?
Well, look, if you speak fluent Trump speak, what you realize is he's taking what is a very complicated deal and putting it in words that everyone can understand. He doesn't mean it literally. When he says we're going to buy Greenland, it doesn't mean he's going to write a check and they're going to hand us a deed to Greenland. What it really means is we're going to get in bed with Greenland more than we've ever been in terms of military.
I know that, and you know that, but the folks in Europe don't know.
Yeah, but the average person doesn't understand that.
They don't know. And the Danes are running around. I mean, that's the first thing that's awakened them since November. So cold over there. But I think
it also shows me that Mette Frederiksen does not know how to manage Trump the way Giorgia Meloni of Italy knows how to manage him.
Whatever it may be, Americans don't care. We just don't want conflict. I think that'll work it out. I think they'll work out something economically, right?
Oh, they're already talking. Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
That's what I think. Panama's the same thing. That guy down there is going to give Trump what he wants, but Trump goes in and says, "Hey, we're going to take it." And so I don't know if I actually had a conversation with the president long about this. I said, you don't have to humiliate the guy. He's going to do what you want. But it seems like Donald Trump wants to create that chaos. He feels it's easier to get a deal out of that once he creates this hysteria. Am I wrong?
Well, there's something else going on here as well. He's showing our adversaries, our true adversaries, and none of these people are our adversaries. They're actually our friends. He's showing, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran in particular, that he is not effing around. When he says something, he means it. And he plans to take immediate action. He is a check your watch, not your calendar kind of president. And that's what we've needed for the last 4 years.
Okay. I understand the messaging, but anyway, final thing. You were based in Brussels as the EU ambassador, correct?
Yes.
The Belgians have been one of the worst offenders in not paying for NATO defense, right?
The Belgians are very careful people, let's put it that way.
What is their justification for not paying the 2%? You must have spoken to them about it.
Because they can get away with it. We haven't pressed them.
So it's the big middle finger from Brussels to Washington, D.C.? That's what it is?
I don't even think it's a middle finger. The country is broke. That country is really broke.
Why is Belgium broke? It's a little Benelux country. What do they got? 4 million people there. Why is it
Yeah,
broke?
because they have a huge social safety net and very little income because everyone's fleeing their tax policy. That's why they're broke.
All right, so they're all bailing out of there because you can't make any money, and so they don't have any money, and they won't put the collective defense. But Trump's not going to get the 5% commitment from NATO. I don't think he's going to get that. Do you?
Well, look, this is my theory. Do we have an extra minute?
Yeah, sure.
My theory is this. If hypothetically we said, look, we've been with you guys in Europe for the last 80 years. We've helped you. We've paid. We've had our blood, treasure, people. You're kind of on your own now. We'll take on the big stuff in China. You're going to have to defend yourselves. We're going to pull everything out, including our money and so on and so forth. All of these countries that we admire, where you're walking down the street and watching people sit in the brasseries, in the middle of the day, writing in their journals instead of working, these countries would have to spend 10%, 11%, 12% of their GDP on defense in order to make up for us. So what Trump is basically saying, Bill, is we have been subsidizing a very enviable lifestyle. And he said, we're not asking to pull the rug out, but they need to put up their share. That's the bottom line.
Well, I think you'll get it in the end. I mean, this is really a departure from the American government, as you said, of the last 80 years. I hope you'll come back, Mr. Ambassador. It was a very good conversation. We appreciate it very much.
Really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Many of us are trying to get our finances in order to start the new year right. And that's great news for homeowners. Interest rates have dropped and are now in the fives. So if you've been burned with high interest rate credit card debt, it's time to break free. American Financing can help you access the cash in your home to pay off your high interest debt. Last year, their salary-based mortgage consultants helped customers save an average of $800 a month. That's like giving yourself a $10,000 raise. What a way to start the new year. And if you begin today, you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. So please call American Financing today, 800-906-2440. That's 800-906-2440. AmericanFinancing.net. And our guest, who I know very well because he's my congressman here on Long Island, Tom Suozzi, Democrat, just reelected. He took a 4-year hiatus. I think it was 4 years you're out there to run for governor against Hochul. Hochul beat you.
It seemed like 4 years. It was only a year and a half.
Was it only a year and a half?
You missed me.
And I wish you had beaten Hochul because the state of New York's a disaster. As you know, you took over for Santos, who I think is in Devil's Island someplace. But anyway, I got some questions for you. Number one, your party was hijacked by far left people under Biden. There's no doubt about that. That's why Trump won. How did that happen? You're not a far left guy. How did your party get hijacked by the far left?
I think that both parties are prone to being hijacked by their extreme bases, both parties. In the case of the Democratic Party, Joe Biden is not the greatest messenger in the world. I think he did a lot of good stuff, but he's not the greatest messenger in the world. And too many people are intimidated to speak up against their extreme base. And as a result, I think the Republicans effectively weaponized the extreme elements of our party to say, like, you're all for defund police, you're all for open borders, you're all for all this extremist stuff, and it worked. There are plenty of extremists in the Republican Party, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz, but we did not effectively weaponize that, and the bigger spokesman was Donald Trump, so you couldn't paint them with that brush. It was just the message he was selling as opposed to
but I still don't understand. If you're a president of the United States and you go into office and open the border and 14 million foreign nationals come in unattended, that's a far left play. Do you have any idea why that man Biden did that? Any idea at all?
My belief, I genuinely believe this, Bill. Joe Biden is a creature of the Senate. And he thinks that, to make long-lasting change, you got to negotiate a deal in the Senate and to come up with a compromise. And he worked on trying to do a compromise for years. Ultimately, they came up with this compromise in February 2024. It was too late. And he did an executive order in June of 2024. I sent him a letter along with a Republican, Brian Fitzpatrick, asking him to seal off asylum applications in between the ports of entry, and he did it. And the numbers are down from what they were when it was really bad back in end of 2023. But it just waited too long, and as a result,
but he too long. It's 3 years of damage.
The first year was not that bad because we were still having the COVID hangover, and there were not that many people.
Oh, but come on,
the border.
you know how bad it was. You said it in your campaign that it was wrong.
No, there's no question. My campaign.
You said it. So why did he do it? Why did he do it for 3 years?
I think he was focused on other stuff, and he did
Other stuff. Look,
COVID was a major issue.
He rams through. I don't give me COVID.
Oh, Bill,
baloney.
COVID was a major issue when he first came into office. The
economy. So what does COVID have to do with an open border? Nothing. And then he rams through regulation after. Wait, listen to me. He rams through regulation after regulation on the energy industry, rocketing inflation so everybody suffers. And then 2 years in, he takes that off. It takes him 2 years to figure out you can't strangle the fossil fuel industry and not have inflation. And he takes it out and he drills like crazy. This is Biden. So he's the second worst president ever, in my opinion, and I know what I'm talking about. But let's advance it. You're the co-chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus, right? In the House, correct?
Yeah, 25 Democrats, 25 Republicans.
Okay.
We regularly try to find common ground.
But here's the problem with that. The most powerful guy in the House is Hakeem Jeffries. He's a far left guy.
He's not
so
far
how
left.
are you going to get anything done?
He's not far left. But
come on.
I'm working for the people I represent. And I'm going to work to try and find common ground on the border. I'm going to work to try and find common ground on inflation and high costs. I'm going to work to find common ground on public safety. I'm going to work to find common ground on something the president talked about in his speech about chronic disease and protecting children. And there's a lot of things that the president has done and said already that I don't like. But I'm not going to focus on the things I don't like. I'm going to focus on where can we find common ground to actually solve the problems we've been facing for the past 30 years.
All right.
So we
now, you wrote an article in the New York Times. Good article. I actually texted you that it was a good article. And about Trump. And you just said on this broadcast, there are a lot of things I don't like that he's done in a week. Give me one.
The pardons. I'll just talk about one pardon from the 1600 from January 6th. This guy, Daniel Rodriguez, was there when they were beating up a police officer, a Capitol police officer. He's on the ground. Some guys are saying, kill him, kill him. And Daniel Rodriguez takes a taser and sticks it in the police officer's neck, tases him. The police officer has a heart attack and has traumatic brain injury as a result. This guy, Daniel Rodriguez, texted his friends and said, you wouldn't believe the stuff I just did, and I got away, and I tased the you-know-what out of the blue. He pled guilty. He got 12-year sentence, and he was included in the blanket pardons. And there's a lot of examples of that from some
All right,
violent...
and that's legitimate. I don't think any fair-minded American would disagree with you. Give me a policy thing, though. So we've had a lot of policy in 8 days. Give me one policy thing that you object to.
The one thing that I disagree with is the complete effort to eradicate a lot of the climate change stuff. I have a difference. I have a difference with the president on that stuff. I take climate change much more seriously than he does. He doesn't look at it the same way. And I'm all for, all the above and utilizing the natural gas reserves we have in our country.
Why do you think, and that breach will never be, you'll never reach Daytona on it. Never.
Yeah, I know that.
Why do you think most Americans have now turned against the climate change zealots?
I think it's been very effectively weaponized I think that the Republicans and President Trump specifically have done a much better job of navigating the fractured media landscape. It's not the traditional media that you and I grew up with, your local paper and your local news stations and cable news. It's now podcasts like yours. It's like social media. It's a so much more fractured environment. And he and his team have done a very effective job of taking anything that they disagree with and blowing it up into a painting of the whole party being a wreck. So, we got to figure out how to combat that and how to make our argument.
Well, I will give you an open invitation. Come here, and also your peer, Laura Gillen, who's a Democrat, who's the South Shore of Long Island. I was telling you I ran into Congresswoman Gillen at the Islander game on Friday. And you're both moderate people. I mean, I've known you guys for a while. You're not loons. But I'll tell you what, Congressman, the power in the Democratic Party still lies in the left-wing zealots. And if you don't break that down, J.D. Vance will be the next president.
I don't believe in defund the police.
No, I know that, but the powerful people, and to say Hakeem Jeffries isn't a far left guy, all you have to do is look at his record and look at his public statements. Look at how he categorized. Wait, just do this because this will. You're a guy. You went to the same high school I went to. We have a lot in common. When those rioters in New York got out of control, you look at what Hakeem Jeffries said. That's all you need to see. Well, anyway, listen, you are welcome anytime. I want the common sense stuff. I want both sides of the story. You see us do anything that you don't like, you come right back on. All right, and we're going to book Ms. Gillen as well. Is that fair enough?
All right. Well, thank you, buddy. Thanks so much.
Nice to see you. As you know, the world is a dangerous place. Pandemics, political chaos, natural disasters. You know it's coming, and when it does, you don't want to get caught unprepared. So you need to think about All Family Pharmacy. They provide life-saving and maintenance medications, antibiotics, and more. And yes, they've got the miracle drug everyone's been talking about, ivermectin, starting at just $3 a capsule. Here is the truth. When the system collapses and shortages happen, the unprepared suffer. Do not be one of them. All Family Pharmacy makes it fast and easy to stock up on all your meds. Here's the deal. Go to allfamilypharma.com/Bill right now. Use the code BILL10 for 10% off your order. Again, allfamilypharma, one word, .com/Bill. Use code BILL10. President Trump's victory is a win for America. That's what most voters think. But Bidenomics has left us with a failing economy. I rely on American Hartford Gold to protect my savings with physical gold and silver, and you should consider that. American Hartford Gold has thousands of five-star ratings and an A+ from the Better Business Bureau. A tax-advantaged gold IRA can shield you from worsening inflation. You can even roll over your 401k or IRA tax-free and penalty-free. So act now before it's too late. Call or text American Hartford Gold. Tell them Bill O'Reilly sent you for up to $15,000 of free silver on qualifying orders. Call 866-501-5201 or text BILL to 65532. That's 866-501-5201 or text BILL to 65532. All right, media madness. This is a minor story. Those of us who live in New York know New York Magazine. Most people who read it are ardent liberals. Nothing wrong with that. And the magazine lists the entertainment options in the big city and all that. But it did something now that you should know about. So they wrote an article, The Cruel Kids Outlaid with the Young Right as They Contemplate Cultural Domination. Then they put a picture on the cover of the magazine. Okay, throw that picture up. And the thesis of the article is there are no black people in The Cruel Kids and All the people who support Trump are white people. But the picture they took was part of the Power 30 Awards presentation that was run by a black man. And here was the original picture that New York Magazine cropped out of its publication. So there you can see there's black people, and they took them out of the picture that New York Magazine used on its cover. Now, in the internet, they had both pictures or whatever. So the guy who ran this is a black man, C.J. Pearson. This is what he said, quote, "This is insane. I hosted this event, and New York Magazine intentionally left me out of the story because it would have undermined the narrative that MAG is some racist cult. They also didn't include the fact that Waka Flocka and Gervonta were also there. You don't hate the liberal media enough." That's C.J. Pearson. Now, this is reminiscent. The reason I'm telling you this is my first show in the aforementioned Trump-O'Reilly history tour was in Fort Lauderdale, where Donald Trump said he took the vaccine and got booed. Remember, I told you the story at the top. Okay. The Sun Sentinel newspaper snuck a photographer into the arena before anybody was admitted by the Secret Service. The photographer took pictures of empty seats and they put it on the front page. Nobody's going to the Trump show. Now, when that did that, I called the public. Guys, and it's out of business. That whole paper is destroyed now. But when I saw this magazine, I said, these people never going to learn their lesson. Okay, Smart Life. Now, we have a concierge service you know about, BillOReilly.com. You join up, you get an email directly to me, a special email. I get a lot of letters from people who don't have any money. And if you don't have any money in America, you're host. You have no power. Anything bad happens to you, it becomes a tragedy and a catastrophe. I try to help these people. Now I'm going to give you a Smart Life tip. If you don't have much money, you know who you are. You know that. There are things you can do ahead of time to protect yourself. Okay? Number one, find out where your local legal aid office is. That is the most important thing you can do to protect yourself. Legal aid is a free service most of the time. You go in, you get advice. You don't pay a fee. These good, kindly attorneys are doing it to help the poor. You get into a problem, you need legal representation, you don't have any money, you can't hire a lawyer. But legal aid will tell you what your options are. That's number one. Number two, state disability office. There are 50 of them. As you get older, you're going to become ill. You don't have any money. You are not going to be able to protect yourself medically. Okay? Yes, you can get Medicare. Yes, you can get Medicaid. And you should lock in on both of those subsidies. Know your rights. Okay? But the state disability office is there to help you should anything extraordinary happen. Know how to get to them. Third, food banks. In almost every county in this country, there are food banks that give low-cost food, sometimes free food, to people who don't have any money. If you don't have any money, there's no shame in taking what you can get. That's why they're there. And fourth and final, it's know your rights as a consumer. That comes under Consumer Affairs Department. There are 50 of them. Every state has them. So if somebody's pounding your door down to pay a bill and you don't have the money to pay it, you have rights. So it almost breaks my heart to read some of these letters that I get in a concierge service, because if you don't have any money, you're screwed. That's it. And you'd be hosed in any country. The communists, when I was in Cuba, everybody didn't have anything. They weren't, if you're poor in America, you're a lot better off than if you're middle class in Cuba. But you've got to protect yourself if you don't have any money. Smart Life. Thank you for watching the No Spin News. To watch the full episode anytime on BillO'Reilly.com, please sign up to become a premium or concierge member. Visit BillO'Reilly.com to sign up and start watching today.